up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, such as the first point collegiate challenge. Not disappointing at all, as UCLA actually didn't get upset. They actually took down both of their opponents. Are the Bruins for real? Can they break the back-to-back trend? Also, how about Ball State taking down Stanford? And Loyola took down Stanford in a 5-set barn burner as well. Also, how about Penn State? We are taking down Lewis at that call. And what about Erskine? The Flyers taking down Lincoln Memorial. Also, the Orlando Valkyries took down the Omaha Supernovas in a 5-set barn burner, as we have a lot of 5-setters in the MLB. Also, LLBB was relatively quiet, but we had quite a bit of good matches as well. So here's the volleyball. Set next. Round about to further volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made it an episode to 334 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube and on X. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, and on TikTok at iSports Radio. Also, make sure to check out our new website, iSportsRadio.com. Yes, it is back up and running and has links to all of our amazing shows that's dedicated to all sports from all around the world, including Set Point. So definitely do check it out. And if you want to become an insider on iSports Radio, covering whichever team you want from your region, you are more than welcome to do so. Just apply, and Larry B will get back to you ASAP. For the last 11 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports states around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to both of our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on into what our sponsors are all about. I will see you in a little bit.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing sponsors and definitely check out our website, iesportsradio.com. It is back and better than ever. We appreciate our sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X and TikTok at set_point.ie. I also just updated on TikTok. I'm sorry if I can't keep up on a daily basis, but at least I get all my content posted onto there. I'm not going to forget. You can also follow me personally on X as well, at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can also follow Set Point on Instagram at set_point.iesr. That's where I'm posting a majority of my content, as well as X as well, so definitely keep an eye on that. But without any further delay, let's get on into that volleyball action. So we have to start with NCAA men's volleyball. So last weekend was the First Point Collegiate Challenge. So man, you know, I'm really bummed out I didn't get a chance to go to the First Point Collegiate Challenge. The past 2 years, I went to the First Point Collegiate Challenge. It was awesome sauce. Albeit last year, I wish we could have had one 5-setter, but it is what it is. But that didn't happen until Saturday, Sunday. So last year's First Point Collegiate Challenge was on Friday, Saturday. And then this year, it decided to be on Saturday, Sunday. And then they had a high school or a club volleyball tournament as a 3-day event because today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So, by the way, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to those who acknowledge Dr. King, such as myself. But I digress. Anyway, so we won't get right into the First Point Collegiate Challenge, but there were some matches that are definitely worth noting. We'll start off with Wednesday. We had only one ranked-on-ranked matchup, and that was the start of the ranked-on-ranked matchups. And that just so happened to be number 18 Princeton taking on number 5 UC Irvine. I was in attendance for this match, and I did love what I saw. I hate to have to say this, but UC Irvine not having some of their all their non-conference matches not being televised at home is a little disheartening, if you ask me, because UC Irvine has a darn good broadcast crew with Charlie Brand and Rob Aspero. Rob Aspero, a.k.a. Rob on the mic, a.k.a. Rob doing everything in this volleyball world, but I digress. But long story short, we didn't really miss much of UC Irvine-Princeton. It was Princeton's first match of the season, while UC Irvine had 3 matches under their belt. It was the Anteaters home opener, and they wound up sweeping the Tigers 25-17, 25-19, and 25-10. Not much to say here. I mean, Andre Jokanovic was spectacular at home. This was my first time seeing Andre, and he was pretty darn good. I could see the hype around this kid, but also seeing Trevor Clark, who I got to cover back when he was at junior college, he was pretty darn good too. Now, like I mentioned in my week 2 starting rotation of the week, Trevor Clark moved from outside hitter / opposite to middle blocker. So I think that's a nice little boost for him. And I think that's pretty darn solid. I think that's great that he's trying out different positions. Meanwhile, for Princeton, they did have one player crack double digits in terms of kills, and that was Owen Mellon, who had 10 kills. He hit 333. He was kind of the only bright spot for Princeton, as the Tigers hit 59 in their season opener. So tough way to open the season, but Sam Schweisky, former Set Point guest, did say that his team does not want to pass. His team wants to play the best that anyone can possibly can play. So I like that little saying. We don't want to pass. We were playing the best that we could possibly play. So I enjoyed that match. I didn't expect it to be that quick of a match. I knew Irvine was going to have a good advantage over Princeton, but that kind of just shows that Princeton was rusty. They were playing in a very good environment. And at UC Irvine, there was I think it was 1,594. It was over 1,000 for a home opener. That's pretty good for a weekday. So great job to the Brent Event Center and to UC Irvine and Princeton fans for showing up. So there was that matchup right there. I enjoyed covering that matchup. I'll be back at UC Irvine next week when UC Irvine hosts Stanford twice, which I think is going to be a really cool matchup. For now, it's not going to be televised, so I'm going to have to do something about that. I'll have to show the highlights of the match. I mean, I probably won't do the highlights for Princeton, UC Irvine, just because it's obviously a lot of UC Irvine highlights, and I don't want to be too, I wouldn't say demoralizing, but too harsh on Princeton, but it is what it is. All right. So jumping backward to Tuesday, we had number 9 Lewis taking down Roosevelt, which was not surprising at all. And then Wednesday we had Long Beach State sweeping Central State. Long Beach State was in Ohio the entire week. They start off in Central State, and then they went to Columbus for the Ohio State little mini tournament. And then Hawaii had a doubleheader on Wednesday and on Friday, beating Roberts Wesleyan and Rockhurst. They needed 4 sets to beat Rockhurst, which I know surprised a lot of people, but Hawaii shuffled their lineup, and there were probably some tired legs. So don't be surprised if Hawaii losing a set is something that pops up. So Hawaii also swept Robert Wesleyan, so ultimately no big deal. And playing 2 matches in one day is rather fascinating. So there you go. Then jumping to Thursday, we had USC, number 5 USC, sweeping Vanguard. So I was on the fence on going to this matchup, but I ultimately chose against it. So USC opened up MPSF play with a win over Vanguard. USC defeated VUSC. Yes, VUSC, not the USC. Anyway, USC didn't have Sterling Foley, as they had to, I wouldn't say heavily rely on Dylan Klein, but they had to also bank on Kahale Cheney, who was pretty darn good. Wes Smith, I also forgot to mention this when it came to Wes Smith. He also had 5 kills. I forgot that the USC played Vanguard. I almost forgot that USC played Vanguard on this match. But you're about to see that you're probably going to wonder why I'm mentioning this match. Well, you're about to find out in a little bit. Then Penn State swept St. Thomas Aquinas. Then you had the Ohio State sweeping George Mason. Now, this was George Mason's first match without Liam French, who I imagine is out for the year. He did not play. It looks like it's a knee injury that he suffered. Because if you remember, not this past Saturday, but the following Saturday, George Mason played Catawba, and unfortunately, Liam French suffered a knee injury on a non-contact play, which really sucks. And Ohio State did sweep George Mason 26-24, 29-27, and 25-17. So George Mason held their own against Ohio State on the road. It's just that they just couldn't win those close first 2 sets. And then the third set was pretty much just all Ohio State. The Buckeyes were led by Shane Wetzel, who had 17 kills, while Stanislaw Chichinski added 16 kills. The Buckeyes hit 330 while holding George Mason to 165. The Patriots were led by Aiden Welton, who had 15 kills. He actually had half the kills that George Mason had as a team. Unfortunately, it was just not enough, as I'm just going to be 100% honest. I really think George Mason is going to miss Liam French just because he's such a dynamic player, and he was probably their senior leader. But unfortunately, he is out for the season, and that's just what happens sometimes. And then I want to make note of this little North Carolina matchup. We had Belmont Abbey taking down Catawba on their home court in 5, which I thought was pretty darn cool. I want to highlight one player on Catawba, Max Adkisson. He had 21 digs and he had 0 reception errors. He was someone who I put in my starting rotation of the week, which I thought was pretty darn cool if you ask me. But Belmont Abbey did get the win, as it was a pretty exciting match if you ask me. Caden Day led the way with 17 kills. We had Zach Puentes having a double-double, 15 kills and 11 digs. So nice win for Belmont Abbey. Kind of want to show them the love. And then we jumped to Friday. Long Beach State took on George Mason, which Long Beach State swept. There's no surprise when it comes to that, just because, well, Long Beach, I mean, they kind of had a little trouble in the first set, but eventually once Long Beach State got it going, I think the Beach just handled business as usual. And this isn't ultimately surprising. Again, George Mason really misses Liam French, and Long Beach State has so much depth, like Daniil Hirsch-Danovich, Alex Kondev, Skylar Varga. Well, he had 8 kills along with Kondev's 8. But this team has so much depth, it's not even funny, dude. So there you have it with that matchup. It was the battle of 2 ranked teams. It was the number 2 Beach taking on the number 20 Patriots. That could have been a trap matchup for the Beach, but honestly, Long Beach State is the reigning national champions. They're just too good. They are really freaking good, dude. And then also, skimming down the list, we had this big upset right here. This upset happened in Missouri, as we had Lindenwood, yes, the Lions, taking down number 12 CSUN in a 4-set barn burner. Set 2 and 3 were actually deuce sets, as they were decided 30-28 and 28-26. Bear in mind, CSUN took the first set 25-23, while Lindenwood won the second and third set 30-28 and 28-26. And then Lindenwood also won the fourth set 25-20. So winning those 2 sets really swung the momentum to Lindenwood. The Lions had 4 different players with 10 or more kills, being led by Owen Walsh, who had 14 kills. Caden Whiteside had 13 kills. Braden Luthane added 12 kills, and Amir Grant had 11 kills with 0 hitting errors. Gotta give credit to the setter, Zach Solomon. He had 47 assists, as well as 3 service aces. He set Lindenwood to a 347 hitting percentage. The only bad set that Lindenwood really had was set number 3, where they hit 167. But even when CSUN had a hitting percentage of 295, Lindenwood still held their own. This just goes to show that the MIVA is not going to be a cakewalk. We're going to see a bunch of upsets in the MIVA. It's not just going to be from Lindenwood or Loyola or Ball State. It's probably going to be from teams like Lewis, McKendree, heck, even Queens, who I also wrote about on middlehitter.com, which I'll get into in a little bit. But Jalen Phillips led the way for CSUN with 19 kills. He hit 385. CSUN also got 8 kills from Hank Kaufman, but it wasn't enough, as the Matadors fell on the road to Lindenwood. I'm very surprised that the Matadors... Look, I'm just going to keep it a buck right here. Without Stilian Delibosov, I just think that this CSUN team is not as good as they were last year. I think CSUN, sadly, is going to take a step back. And I say that with all due respect to Theo Edwards. He's a fantastic coach, but unfortunately, without Stilian, he just is not... They just don't look like the team that they were last year. I'm sorry, but it's the truth, y'all. And then Hawaii won its 2 matches on Friday against Rockhurst and Roberts Wesleyan for a second time. And then Concordia Irvine got their first win of the season, first win of the season, and they also got their first win under new head coach John Gurton. I'm going to be seeing Concordia Irvine tomorrow when they host Princeton, which I think should be a fun matchup. But now we got to get into some of the bigger matchups. So we had probably a big upset right here. We had number 5 UC Irvine taking down number 3 Pepperdine in 4. Actually, it was number 7 UC Irvine taking down number 3, tied for number 3 Pepperdine in 4. But I digress. UC Irvine needed a big comeback in that first set I think they were down by as many as 7. And they eventually came back to win set 1, 25-23, which I thought was huge right there. And they also wound up making a massive comeback in the second set, winning in overtime, winning it 26-24. They almost made a comeback in set 3, but Pepperdine wound up winning set 3, 25-22. And eventually UC Irvine rode the momentum. Even though they lost set 3, they rode the momentum of nearly coming back. And they eventually took down Pepperdine in set 4, 25-20 to win the match. Will Darcy had himself a night for the Anteaters. He had 19 kills. Andre Jokanovic added 17 kills. The Anteaters hit 376. And even when Pepperdine hit 406, which I think is incredible, you hit 400, but you still lose. I think UC Irvine, is starting to really make a name for themselves. They're not as big and flashy as they were last year with Hilir Heno. But honestly, this UC Irvine team is just some kind of incredible. For the Waves, they were led by Ryan Barnett, who had 15 kills. Grant Lemereau added 14 kills, and Cole Hartke added 13 kills. My takeaway for Pepperdine is this. I still think they still have a lot to learn. I think this was more so UC Irvine being good, more so than Pepperdine being bad. I think UC Irvine is now starting to be on everyone's radar. I think this Anteaters team is going to be something special, and they're 5-0 for the second straight year, which I think is pretty cool. Now, can UC Irvine keep it going against BYU? And that's actually a perfect segue to go into round 1 of number 10 UC San Diego playing at number 8 BYU, which this was my series of the week. My match of the week was kind of balanced between Loyola Chicago and UCLA and UC Irvine and Pepperdine. But for UC San Diego, BYU, there wasn't much happening. I mean, BYU swept UC San Diego. I thought BYU was got nice little control. UC San Diego got its first test of the season. And honestly, BYU plays so comfortably at Smith Fieldhouse. If this were in La Jolla, I think UC San Diego would have had a better chance. But honestly, BYU is still as good as advertised. As Connor Oldani led the way with 16 kills. AJ Cottle had 6 kills, and he hit 500. This kid has a really special story. I think last year he was at Utah Valley State, and he played club volleyball there, and then he transferred to BYU, which I thought was pretty darn cool, if you ask me. Overall, BYU, they hit 460 on the night while holding UC San Diego to 290, which, I mean, it's not the greatest, but still pretty solid. They also only missed 10 serves. They had 6 service aces. For UC San Diego, they were led by Sebastiano Sani, or Seb Sani, who had 11 kills. But he was their only double-digit kill leader, as Leo Prevednikov added 8 kills. And then Josh Stewart had himself a muggy night. He had only 4 kills while hitting in the negative. So BYU really did a good job of keeping him limited. So tough way to lose and suffer your first loss of the season for the Tritons. But BYU is really good as advertised. And then we had USC grinding it out in a 4-set win over Princeton. This one I think was a little surprising. But again, USC was actually coming off of a second of a back-to-back. They didn't have Sterling Foley. I don't know what his status is for this week, or what his injury or ailment is. But USC really needed everything and more to try to beat Princeton. And it just goes to show that Princeton having that match against UC Irvine really did them wonders, as Dylan Klein led the way with 27 kills. He only had 1 hitting error, and he hit 650, and he also had 7 digs. This kid is as good as advertised. There's a reason why I think he could probably be an AVCA Player of the Year, or he's probably going to be AVCA All-American. Wes Smith also had 10 kills. Something to note for Wes Smith, he is back and better than ever. So last year, unfortunately, he didn't get to play much, as he lost his – I wouldn't say he lost his starting spot, but Parker Tompkinson was on the rise, and then they also had Guy Guinness. So Wes Smith kind of was the odd banana out, and unfortunately, he just didn't get a lot of playing time in the middle blocker position. But now that Guy Guinness has graduated, now that Parker Tompkinson, well, he was out last week. He did suffer an injury in the offseason, and he did miss the first week of the season. But now Parker Tompkinson is back. But Wes Smith is also back in the lineup too. And Wes Smith had such a promising freshman year until he suffered that, I think it was plantar fasciitis injury or a strained hairline injury. But regardless, USC got a good production night from Wes Smith. Smith also had 8 blocks. Christian Connell had 9 kills, filling in for Sterling Foley. Overall, it was a great win for USC. First test of the season, and just goes to show that the Trojans are still for real. It's just that they kind of got it a little surprised. As my boy Marcus, Los Great, says, salute to you too, Marcus. Thank you for tuning in. So for Princeton, they were led by Owen Mellon, who had 20 kills. Double-digit kills in both of the matches that Princeton played in. Pretty darn good. Andrew Werner added 14 kills. Ambrose Engling added 9 kills. Much better night from Princeton as they hit 360. They did miss 18 serves, but they blocked the ball well. They had 8.5 blocks, though USC did have 13 blocks. So overall, a great match, great underrated match from USC and Princeton, but USC remains undefeated. Fun fact, USC is probably going to be one of the few teams that don't have to travel a whole lot of miles throughout the entire season because they only have to travel once out of state, and that's against BYU, which I think is a plus for them. And well, actually, they're going to have to travel twice. So once to Provo to face BYU twice, and then the other time when they play in the MPSF tournament. That could wind up biting them in the butt if they have to play BYU in the MPSF tournament. But at the very least, they're at least not going to have to travel too much. So they're not going to get too much frequent flyer miles, but I digress. So now we jump to Saturday. We won't go into First Point Collegiate Challenge right away. I know the title of my of this show is First Point of Business, Discuss NCAA Men's Volleyball. But that first point of the title is kind of a nod to the First Point Volleyball and to Glenn Litsky of what he did. But to Saturday, this was kind of a notable result. Manhattan men's volleyball. They wound up getting their first win of the season as they swept Harvard. Yes, the Jaspers of Manhattan. Unbelievable. Amazing win for them as Caston Owens led the way for Manhattan with 13 kills, while Blake Perkins added 10 kills. Sam Moriel added 9 kills as Manhattan hit 284 while holding Harvard to a hitting percentage of 159 as they didn't have one player in double digits in terms of kills as Olin Wolbert led the way with 9 kills. But a huge congratulations to Manhattan for picking up their first ever win in program history, which I think is pretty incredible if you ask me. All right, just need to get that out of the way. Now let's get on into this matchup. Long Beach State, number 2 Long Beach State versus tied for number 13 Ohio State. Now, I was a little worried about this matchup because Ohio State loves to pull week 3 upsets. You saw it last year when they beat number 1 UCLA, and you saw it the year before when they beat number 1 UCLA. Unfortunately, this isn't the First Point Collegiate Challenge, and Ohio State couldn't beat Long Beach State, but they took the first set 25-21, and I was a little surprised. Well, actually, no, not a little surprised. I was slightly surprised because Ohio State's good, and this was Long Beach State's first true test of the season. Second ranked opponent of the season, third ranked opponent of the season. Third ranked opponent of the season, but first true road test. And then Long Beach State bounced back, and they responded really well after that as they didn't really have too much trouble. They did have a little trouble in the 4th set, but Long Beach State eventually pulled away and wound up beating Ohio State in 4 sets, 21-25, 25-18, 25-18, and 25-20. The Beach was led by Skylar Varga, who had 14 kills. He also had 5 blocks, and he also had 5 digs. Alex Kondev also had 12 kills, 0 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .632. He also had 5 digs and 4 blocks and 5 service aces. Oh, man. He probably would have been a honorable mention for my starting rotation of the week. Ben Braun also had 10 kills as well with only 1 hitting error as he faced his former team, Ohio State. And the Buckeyes, they were led by Shane Wetzel, who had 14 kills while adding 5 digs. They also got 8 kills from Stanislaw Chichinski, but it wasn't enough as the Ohio State fell to the Long Beach State, the reigning national champions. And this was Long Beach State's first trip to Columbus since winning the national championship last season. So a great win for Long Beach State, taking down their first true road opponent. So, well, first true road opponent that was ranked. So there you go. All right. Now, jumping over to this matchup. This was another stunner. We had Erskine. A little interesting fact about Erskine. They actually were pretty good back in its heyday. They actually did make the NCAA tournament, I think, back in 2015. It was somewhere in the mid-2010s. But Erskine was really good back in the day, and now they kind of fell off a little. I wouldn't say fell off, but they've kind of had a little bit of some struggles. But Erskine took down Lincoln Memorial in 4 on the road. This was Erskine's first win against a national collegiate men's volleyball ranked foe, which I thought was pretty darn cool, if you ask me. I had to do some digging. They did take down another ranked opponent, but I think that was in NCAA Division III. That was Mount St. Joseph, but I digress. But this was a massive win for Erskine. Great win for the Conference Carolinas as a whole, as Erskine was led by True Bauer, who had 19 kills. He also hit 342. They also got 12 kills from Colin Fahey. He also hit 667. And Erskine as a team, they hit 333, while Lincoln Memorial hit 319. Still pretty good, as the Rail Splitters were led by Rayla Milosavljevic, who had 14 kills. George Stevens also had 14 kills as well. But it wasn't enough, as Lincoln Memorial fell to Erskine. Kind of a little surprising, just because Erskine hadn't really beaten a national collegiate ranked men's volleyball opponent in its program's history, but they were able to do so. Also, Lincoln Memorial normally wins these matches at home. So to see the Rail Splitters losing this matchup, it's kind of going to come back to haunt them. You'll see. And then we had round 2 of UC San Diego versus BYU. And this time it was a little bit better of a matchup, but the Cougars took down the Tritons, this time in 4 sets. BYU really came out the gate swinging, as they took the first set 25-13. The Tritons took the second set 25-16. And then the third set, Cougars took it 25-21. And then the fourth set, remember how Long Beach State and McKendree went 35-33 in set 2 of their match? Well, BYU and UC San Diego kind of recreated that, as the Cougars wound up winning set 4 35-33, which was unbelievable. So 35-33 is still the longest running set this NCAA men's volleyball season, as BYU was led by Trent Moser, who had 14 kills. Also got 11 kills from Talon Jonathan Tafuga. And then my guy, AJ Cottle, had 10 kills on 10 swings for a perfect 1,000 hitting percentage. He also had 11 blocks as well. So he had a double-double, which I think is pretty cool. BYU hit 326 while holding UC San Diego to a hitting percentage of 216. Obviously, BYU won the blocking category, as they had 16.5 blocks to UC San Diego's 9.5. As the Tritons, they were led by Sebastiano Sani, who had 13 kills. Leo Prevednikov added 12 kills. Unfortunately, it was not enough, as UC San Diego kind of took one on the chin this week. It doesn't get easier, as they've also got UCLA this week. So that's going to be another tough matchup as well. So there is that matchup right there. And that's pretty much that for all of the ranked on ranked matchups when it comes to matches not in the First Point Collegiate Challenge. Now let's jump on into the First Point Collegiate Challenge. So the first matchup we had was Stanford versus Loyola Chicago. By the way, I will say I did hear that, and I kind of saw that First Point Collegiate Challenge had a lot of a great turnout. It was just a nice little massive turnout. I heard there was like 4,000. I can't confirm that number fully, but it was still a nice little number right there. Very good number. I'm really, really envious on on me not going. I really am sad. Like, I really want to go to this event. I know airfare is a thing and hotels are a thing, but I really want to go to First Point Collegiate Challenge. It really meant a lot for me to have at least try to have gone. There was some content creators that were there, but dude, I really wanted to go to the First Point Collegiate Challenge. So now I'm going to have to start a new streak of going to First Point Collegiate Challenge, or hoping some sort of miracle I get something to like accommodate my fees, or First Point Volleyball lets me or needs my services for work. But first matchup we had was Loyola Chicago taking down Stanford in a 5-set barn burner, winning the match 21-25, 25-22, 23-25, 26-24, and 15-13. Jumping to the fifth set, Loyola Chicago was actually down 7-5 in set 5, and they also were down 13-12, but then the Ramblers ended the match on a 3-0 run to win set 5 and pull off an amazing win over Stanford, denying them their first win of the season, as the Ramblers were led by Alexander Sosa, who had 26 kills. He had 447, and he had 6 digs. They also got 21 kills from Daniel Fabakovic, which I thought was pretty nice. Now, Loyola actually didn't have their starting setter. They actually were starting, wait for it, Alex Smits Van Ooyen. He had 54 assists, and he had 10 digs. I probably could have put him as my starting setter for starting rotation of the week, but I had to go with Zach Solomon of Lindenwood. No offense to Van Ooyen. I think Van Ooyen is going to be a great succeeder once Ryan McElligott graduates. McElligott is a senior, so Alex needs to only be patient. For Stanford, speaking of setters, Stanford also was without Theron Briette, as well as Ryan Gant got the start yet again, as he had 57 assists. He did have 1 service ace and 6 digs. Stanford offensively was led by Moses Wagner, who had 19 kills. Alex Rotman added 17 kills, and then Teo Snui added 16 kills. Despite losing, Stanford hit 358, which was pretty good, if you ask me. Pretty good for a loss, but Loyola hit 390. But the big issue for Stanford is that they only had 1 block on the night. You don't win matches with just 1 block. It just doesn't work that way, Stanford. Against a good team like Loyola, who is coming off of a split against Hawaii, and a win against Hawaii for that matter, you have to play some darn good volleyball. Jumping to match number 2 of the First Point Collegiate Challenge, we had number 16 Ball State taking on number 1 UCLA. So first set, Ball State got the jump, and they wound up taking the first set 25-22, and they also led 22-21. And I'm thinking, could Ball State pull off the upset? They had set point at 24-23, but UCLA closed off the set on a 3-0 run to take set number 2, 26-24. UCLA also needed 2 set points to win set 3, but they wound up winning it 26-24. And set 4, they rode the momentum from sets 2 and 3 to win it 25-20, as UCLA remained undefeated. They took down Ball State, their second-ranked opponent of the season, as UCLA had 4 different players with double-digit kills, being led by David Decker, who had 22 kills. He had 621. He had 2 service aces as well. The Bruins also got 17 kills from Zach Rama, and they got 12 kills from Sean Kelly, and they got 10 kills in the middle from Cam Thorne, who was also making his homecoming. UCLA hit 473, and they missed 22 serves. I should make note of that. And they had they only had 5.5 blocks, as they actually got out blocked by Ball State 7 to 5.5. Meanwhile, for Ball State, they were led by Patrick Rogers, who had 18 kills, while Ryan Lewis added 11 kills. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Even though Ball State hit 358, the UCLA offense just was more sizzling. So UCLA, in my opinion, look, there's a reason why they're number 1 to start out. So honestly, it's not ultimately surprising that Ball State lost. I think it was more surprising that Ball State got a set off of UCLA, but UCLA often struggles in the first couple of weeks, especially in First Point Collegiate Challenge. But since there's no Ohio State this year, they don't have to worry about it. So now moving on to Sunday's First Point Collegiate Challenge match, we had Ball State versus Stanford. I'll skip through the first 2 sets. It was all Ball State. They wound up winning the first 2 sets by scores of 25-17 and 25-18. I was very surprised that Stanford just does not look like the Stanford that I thought they would be. And then eventually Ball State was trailing throughout most of the set in set 3, but then they tied it up at 22 apiece, only to see Stanford take the third set 25-23, Then set 4 was kind of the opposite. Ball State was actually leading throughout most of the set, only to see Stanford tie it up at 22-22. But Ball State eventually wound up winning the 4th set 25-23 to win the match, which was massive. The Cardinals were led by Patrick Rogers and the Rogers rate, who had 17 kills. Ryan Lewis added 12 kills, and then Will Basilio added 10 kills. Ball State hit 382 while adding 8 service aces, with 3 going to Lewis and to Rogers. Stanford hit 315 despite the loss, but they missed 19 serves and only had 2 aces. And they had only 7.5 blocks, and Ball State also had 8.5 blocks. So Stanford was led by Moses Wagner, who had 16 kills. It seems like Moses Wagner always does great in the First Point Collegiate Challenge. They also got 14 kills from Teo Snui, and then 10 kills from Alex Rotman. I'm so glad Alex Rotman is back playing volleyball again. Last year he redshirted, which was tough for him, but he is back. So Stanford actually ran a 6-2. So Ryan Gant actually played 2 sets, but then eventually they brought in Jacob Little-Phillips. So it looks like, I guess, John Costi didn't like what he was seeing with Ryan Gant. I think maybe Jacob Little-Phillips ran the offense a little bit more effectively. So in the 5 years that First Point Collegiate Challenge has been in, this is actually the first time Stanford has failed to win a match in the First Point Collegiate Challenge. I kid you not. This is the first time Stanford has gone 0-for. So they went 0-for-2 in the First Point Collegiate Challenge, losing in a 5-set heartbreaker to Loyola, and then losing in 4 to Ball State. So sadly, that is the case for Stanford, as they're actually 0-3 to start the season. But you also can justify it just because they faced some darn good opponents. All 3 of their losses are to MIVA teams. So hopefully for Stanford's sake, they'll be able to get some home cooking going on in the Maples Pavilion. As Larry B pops in the chat room, he says, "You're the man, Teran." Thank you, Larry B. I appreciate it. All right, but that's that for the First Point Collegiate Challenge. Great event overall. Larry B also says, Northridge losing is crazy. Well, kind of, sort of, not so really. I mean, I've been saying it. Northridge is taking a step back this year. Stilian Delibosov is out for the year, unfortunately, due to injury. Jalen Phillips, as good as he is, he's going to need all the help he can get. So I think for me, CSUN losing isn't all that surprising, but losing to Lindenwood is a little bit surprising. If they had lost to someone like maybe Lewis or McKendree or Ball State or Loyola, I think it'd be a little less surprising, but I honestly thought they were not going to lose to Lindenwood. But it just shows that my theory is correct. CSUN's taken a step back this year. As I think Larry B asked this question, he says, so would you say Northridge is more of a falling star and not a shooting star this season? Yes. So yes, I think that is the case, just because for starters, the Big West is stacked as always. Long Beach State is really good. Hawaii is really, really good. UC Irvine, even though they're young, I think they're still up there in talent. UC San Diego, I thought they were going to take a step back, but I think they're going to be taking a step forward. They're more of a shooting star than a falling star. And then UC Santa Barbara, I think, can still be good. I just feel like between CSUN, UCSB, and UC San Diego, CSUN is kind of the most likely to finish last in the Big West. But they still have the Big West Conference tournament, which no matter what happens, they're still in the tournament because there's 6 teams that makes the tournament, and all 6 teams and only 6 teams in the Big West. So overall, to answer Larry's question, yes, I think that CSUN is a falling star more so than a shooting star, sadly. And Larry says he loves some Big West volleyball. So, yeah, I'm going to be covering a lot more of them Big West men's volleyball. So, all right, but that is that. Let's jump on into the AVCA men's volleyball poll for this week. So quite a bit of shifting here and there. So you notice Lincoln Memorial is no longer in the top 25. So they moved out, as well as George Mason. And then now moving in is Lindenwood after their upset against CSUN. And then Charleston. Interesting that Charleston is in the top 25 or top 20. I mean, you can make an argument for any team that's still receiving votes, but Charleston is the lucky one. So they are in the number 20 spot. I really wish Lincoln Memorial didn't move out of the top 20, but this is what happens when you lose to Erskine of all teams. Woof. Woof. But Penn State's back in the top 10. If you remember last year, Penn State actually, there was a point where Penn State actually was out of the top 20, which was the first time since the 1980s, since they weren't ranked, which is funny because last year the women's team finished the season unranked as well. But I digress. Ball State had the biggest jump, going up 4 spots. Lewis State put at number 9. Stanford has a lot to prove this year, or a lot to prove this week, because they play UC Santa Barbara. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But that's the ABCA poll. So now let's jump on into the Off the Block media poll. So the first Off the Block media poll was released on Wednesday. So here's the Off the Block media poll. You have UCLA 1, Long Beach State 2, Pepperdine 3. You also had Hawaii and USC tied for number 4. I'm going to also give my 2 cents about ties. So ties, I'm not really too keen about, just because it's like hugging your sister. It's like, find a way to break the tie for some weird reason. Anyway, so Hawaii and, oops, that's not it. But yeah, the Off the Block media poll, tying for number 4 is Hawaii and USC, which kind of grinds my gears. But you also had number 6 being Loyola, number 7 UC Irvine, number 8 BYU, Lewis was number 9, and number 10 was UC San Diego. So there's the top 10 of the Off the Block media poll. So these are voted on by media members such as myself. You have Jonathan Bates as well. You have Rob Aspero voting. I think Anne Marie Anderson votes. You have Joe McCurdy, who is pretty much the new it guy when it comes to volleyball social media on TikTok and on Instagram. And so many more media members voting in terms of NCAA men's volleyball that cover NCAA men's volleyball. So as for my ballot, here's my ballot for the Off the Block media poll. So I voted UCLA number 1, Long Beach State number 2. I voted Hawaii number 3 just because they have a better argument of being number 3 than Pepperdine does. Just because I really, 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 really don't understand why Pepperdine and Hawaii got both lumped in at number 3 in terms of tying in the ABCA poll. I think Hawaii has a better strength of schedule. I mean, Pepperdine going into week number 3, they only had 1 win, and that was against St. Thomas Aquinas, which doesn't really write home about. And then I voted USC at number 5, UC Irvine at number 6, just because Irvine has 3. They went 3-0 and they didn't lose a set. And then Loyola split against Hawaii. And then Lewis, I put Lewis at number 8 just because I thought at the time that was a really good win by them, beating the likes of Stanford on the road. But you're about to see that's not all that's cracked up to be. And then, and I forgot to mention, Lewis also wound up losing to Penn State in 4, which, God, Penn State is on the rise. And then UC San Diego is number 10. And then I put BYU at number 9 thinking, well, their wins over St. Francis aren't that great. Well, BYU beating UC San Diego twice is kind of proving me a little wrong. And there's a reason why, and I feel much more happier putting Pepperdine at number 4. So there you go. That's why I put Hawaii over Pepperdine. I don't think Pepperdine deserved to be over Hawaii, even though Hawaii did lose to Loyola. But the first match was more so Loyola being rusty. The second match, I think Loyola kind of showed who they truly were. So those are my off the block. That's my off the block ballot right there. So Larry B also mentions USC, and then he says UCLA is solid. I can't even knock them. Well, yeah, they look good so far, but let's see how they do once they get into MPSF play, and let's see how they do when they play Long Beach State. And now let's get on into the week 4 preview of the NCAA men's volleyball season. Then we'll jump to a commercial break. All right, so week 4 preview. So we have 10 ranked on ranked matches. So we're going to skip through all of the non-ranked on-ranked matches, but I will say Tuesday I will be going to Concordia Irvine's match against Princeton, which I already mentioned, but there you go. That's where I'll be this week. Anyway, so Thursday we have UC Santa Barbara taking on Stanford, which is the battle of 2 ranked on ranked teams. man, if there's ever Santa Barbara did play, but they played in this one counted toward their record. They played the Masters College of the NAIA, but the Masters on their end, that was actually an exhibition match. So I don't know why it's an exhibition match, but don't look at me. Anyway, but UC Santa Barbara's undefeated, but man, if there's ever a match that Stanford needs to win, it's this one. They play UC Santa Barbara on Thursday and on Friday, and they're hosting UC Santa Barbara. So I wouldn't say this is ultimately must-win territory for Stanford. It's still very early in the season, but if they fall to 0-5, then we have a little concern. Maybe it's because Theron Briette is out due to injury. Maybe they need him in the lineup, but I don't know. I mean, I would say that this is probably the biggest litmus test. We will see where Stanford is really at. Are they really not for real? Do they need a get-right game against UC Santa Barbara? Is UC Santa Barbara the real deal? Because they've got some good players, but I want to see what they could truly do because this is their first-ranked match of the season. All right, and then jumping to Friday, we have this newly ranked unranked matchup. We have Charleston taking on number 12 Ball State. So, look, this was supposed to be – I was supposed to have Lincoln Memorial and Ohio State as the notable underrated matchup of the week. But honestly, with Lincoln Memorial falling out of the top 25 or top 20, Charleston Ball State might be the most underrated matchup. So Charleston, look, I want to see what Charleston can really do. If Charleston can win, then honestly, that proves that they're top 20 material. These EIVA opponents are kind of an anomaly outside of like Princeton and Penn State, mainly Penn State. But honestly, I think Charleston has a lot to prove. I mean, George Mason, I know what George Mason is all about, especially without Liam French. But I want to see what Charleston can do against a ranked opponent, especially a Ball State team that had a really good weekend and that is coming off of a win over Stanford. Then we got before series of the week, we got match of the week. Number 6 Pepperdine plays at number 7 Loyola. I know what you all are saying. 6-7. Yeah, we're leaving that behind in 2025. Anyway, so Loyola versus Pepperdine is actually a rematch of last year's NCAA tournament quarterfinal match, which I think is going to be a great matchup. So last year, if we all remember, Loyola did lose to Pepperdine, but I want to see what Pepperdine can do following a loss. I also want to see what UCLA can do following a loss as well. Or I'm sorry, Loyola. I want to see what Loyola can do following a loss as well. I mean, this one can go it can go either way. If Loyola has any sort of pride, they're going to want to play with a lot of fire. Because, look, I think Loyola, and this is no offense to Pepperdine, I think Loyola could have beaten Pepperdine in the first round matchup of the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, they let a late lead slip away, a late 24-21 lead slip away in set 2. And that was probably the big difference maker because Pepperdine had all that momentum. And that was pretty much it. So I think that's arguably match of the week, and you can't tell me otherwise that that's not match of the week. I guess another singular good matchup is UCLA at UC San Diego. I want to see what UCLA can do against a true opponent on the road. Let's see what UCLA or UC San Diego can do against a good team such as UCLA. Let's see if they can bounce back or if they're going to be losing their third straight. So we shall see. As Larry said, Teran just dissed Pepperdine. Well, I mean, if you look at the matchup last year, Loyola was leading throughout most of that second set against Loyola. Loyola was leading in that second set against Pepperdine last year in the NCAA tournament. But what happened was that Pepperdine had a 3-point swing, and they eventually wound up winning in overtime in that second set. And I think it was the last 5 points of the set where they wound up winning it. So, but back to UCLA, UC San Diego. I imagine UCLA will beat UC San Diego, but if UC San Diego has a big night from Josh Ewart, if they get Josh Ewart in the first match against BYU, UCLA will have a field day. But I honestly think UC San Diego has a chance against UCLA. It's just that UCLA is just so big and rugged. And speaking of the MPSF versus the Big West, we have probably the series of the week. UC Irvine, number 5 UC Irvine at number 8 BYU. The two teams also face each other on Saturday. This is something's got to give here. Someone's going to be losing their first match of the season. I think for UC Irvine, this is their first true road test because they're traveling outside of California. I want to see what the Anteaters can do in Smith Fieldhouse, because Smith Fieldhouse is going to be rocking. That's one of the tougher places to win at, not just in women's volleyball, but men's volleyball as well. So UC Irvine might have their work cut out for them in this matchup. And then also, I might go to Long Beach State, Fort Valley State, which would be a rematch of last year's first round matchup, but it's not set in stone. And then this is probably the most underrated matchup, or truly underrated matchup. Number 10 Penn State at number 15 McKendree. Now, you all are probably thinking, well, Penn State might win this one, Teran, because they just beat Lewis. I disagree, because I think McKendree's going to really, really give their best to Penn State. I really think McKendree has a real good shot at beating Penn State. I mean, Penn State, that win over Lewis was good, but let's see how they do outside of Rec Hall. Because Lebanon, look, the McKendree gym it's not like Rec Hall. I'm just going to leave it at that. The two also play each other on Saturday. This is the sneaky series of the week right here. McKendree, Penn State. Remember it. And that's pretty much that for Friday's notable matchups. And then Saturday, we have this little notable matchup. We have 10 ranked on ranked matchups, by the way. We have number 6 Pepperdine playing at number 9 Lewis. So this one is another underrated matchup. This one's a nice little MIVA versus MPSF matchup. And again, let's see what Pepperdine can do on the road. This is their first true road test, facing Loyola Chicago and Lewis on back-to-back days. So I hope it's not too nippy for Pepperdine, just because, well, they're from Southern California and there's not too much cold weather. So dress warmly, Pepperdine. That's my bit of advice right there. And then also some other interesting matchups. We have Quincy, Loyola Chicago. Quincy's also facing Lewis. Interesting fact about Quincy is that they were part of the MIVA, and then now they're part of the, I think, Great Lakes Valley Conference. Either way, Quincy is no longer in the MIVA, so there you go. NJIT Damon's kind of a sneaky good matchup, but it's probably not going to be on everyone's radar. Fort Valley State is playing all the Southern California teams. They've got UCLA, Long Beach State on Thursday, Friday. Saturday, they're at USC, and then Sunday, they're at CSUN. So if CSUN loses to Fort Valley State, even though Fort Valley State did make the NCAA tournament, we're going to have problems with CSUN. Because I know Fort Valley State is so scrappy, and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable playing in Southern California. But honestly, I want to see what CSUN can do against Fort Valley State, because that is an NCAA tournament team. And even though they're not one of the better ones, I think in terms of like being ranked, I think Fort Valley State, if they can get a big night from Isaiah Fed and Dozie Ononie, I think this Fort Valley State team can maybe make CSUN sweat. I mean, they're gonna get rid of they'll get rid of the intimidation factor in the first match against UCLA, and then the second match against Long Beach State, and then probably the third match against USC, because those three teams are the golden standard. But against CSUN, Fort Valley State might have a chance on Sunday. But that's 4 straight matches they're playing. So 4 straight matches on the road, mind you. So they're going to really need to have to play their A game. But if they can get a massive game out of Isaiah Fed and, like I said, Dozie Ononie, a.k.a. Constantine, they might have a shot. But that'll do it for the week 4 preview of the NCAA men's volleyball season. We're going to take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we've got some MLV to discuss as well as LOVB. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
And we are back with Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows on IE Sports Radio, such as Neutral Zone, I think it's Asphalt to Apex to Asphalt, or Asphalt to Apex, vice versa. You also got Fast Break with Dentarius Locke and Davidson Crooks. And then you got Shin Pads and Shenanigans with Jess. So a lot of great shows here on IE Sports Radio. So now let's jump on into the MLV, or Major League Volleyball, formerly known as the PVF, which I still have a little bit of a gripe, but we had ourselves quite the week. So we had lots of five-setters. So if you're a fan of five-set matches, this is your little segment here. So the first match we had was on Wednesday. Week 2 of the the MLV was the Grand Rapids Rise taking on the Columbus Fury. And we had, and remember when I told you all that Columbus Fury was off to a good start, but if there was ever a game or never a match that the Grand Rapids Rise could catch the Fury on a bad night, this was the one. So personally, I think that Grand Rapids Rise deserves to to win. Grand Rapids Rise took down Columbus Fury in 5, which I thought was kind of expected because, look, Grand Rapids Rise can't stink forever. As the Rise, they rose to the occasion, and they were led by Carly Snyder, who had 16 kills, while Ramet Al-Hassan added 13 kills, and then Leah Meyer added 11 kills. So a big win for Grand Rapids Rise, their first win of the season. Oh, and they also got 11 kills from Paige Romine Briggs. As a team, Grand Rapids only hit 176, but sometimes hitting ugly is better than hitting great in a loss. So anyway, so for the Fury, they were led by Raina Terry, who had 14 kills, and they also got 12 kills from Reagan Pittman, and then 10 kills from Abby Walker. So I kind of had a feeling this was too good to be true for the Fury, as the Rise wound up winning the match 23-25, 25-17, 19-25, 25-21, and 15-12. So a big win for the Rise, as they wound up picking up their first win of the season. And for the Fury, unfortunately, it kind of reminds me of last year. Anyway, so moving on to Thursday's match. So Thursday, we had the Dallas Pulse taking on the San Diego Mojo, and something was needed to give here. Either the San Diego Mojo were going to be getting their first win of the season, or the Dallas Pulse was going to be getting their first ever win. And to kind of everyone's surprise, the Dallas Pulse pulled off their first win of the season. I say kind of just because I think the Pulse can play. They actually were competitive against the Indy Ignite. Only problem was that you have to win the match. But playing at home really helped Dallas, as Dallas wound up taking down the Mojo 15-25, 25-16, 25-16, and 25-18. So this was kind of the tale of sets of runs, or runs of sets. As the Pulse, their first ever win in program history, which I think is nice. They were led by Sofia Maldonado Diaz, who had 12 kills and 10 digs. They also got 11 kills from Mimi Collier, who was a stud at Oregon and Wisconsin. And they also got 10 kills from Tristan Savage. And then they also, they also got 10 kills from Tristan Savage. I thought she had, but I digress. And it looks like she didn't have any hitting errors. So I think that's pretty cool if you ask me. So 0 hitting errors. She had 714. So yeah, Tristan Savage, for those that remember, that's a former Florida State and UCLA player. Anyway, so for the Mojo, they were led by Grace Loberg, who had 12 kills. They also got 9 kills from Maya Tabron, along with 11 digs. It wasn't enough, as San Diego hit a abysmal 141, while Dallas hit 292. So that's tough to molly for San Diego, but I kind of feel that playing on the road just really did them in. So next up, we had the Omaha Supernovas and the Atlanta Vibe. So this was kind of remember when I told you that this was a trap game for Omaha? I didn't expect to be right. I thought it could have been a trap game, but Omaha, the first two sets, they took the first two sets against Atlanta, 25-23 and 25-17. So look, here's the thing about Atlanta. I didn't think that Omaha was going to, you're probably thinking, what's the issue? They won the first two sets. Atlanta wound up reverse sweeping Omaha. I don't know how. Now, here's the thing. Here's my biggest gripe with Omaha. Omaha is such a darn good home team. Omaha has such a super team. They have probably the most stacked team top to bottom. And they were at home. They're at the CHI Health Center. And they wound up getting reverse swept against Atlanta. Now, Atlanta does have a good team, and I thought we were going to get the Merritt Beeson revenge game. But I was not expecting Atlanta to pull off a reverse sweep, because they're on the road and playing in that hostile environment. Omaha has a lot of good fans. The Omaha Supernovas and Nebraska fans in terms of volleyball are just a different breed. Anyway, but Leah Edmond had something to say about that. She had 21 kills and 12 digs. Atlanta also got 12 kills and 14 digs against Pia Timmer, and they got 12 kills and 14 digs from Anna Dixon. As a team, Atlanta hit 287, which I thought was pretty cool, and they barely outdug Omaha, which it's not that big of a deal. But hitting 287 while holding Omaha to 175 is pretty darn impressive. As for Omaha, they were led by Brooke Nuneviller, who had 18 kills. They also got 16 kills from Merritt Beeson and 14 kills from Sarah Wilhite Parsons. I don't know why her full maiden maybe I think her maiden name is Sarah Wilhite, but since she got married a while back, she's now Sarah Parsons. But either way, okay. The big thing is, my big takeaway for this match is this. This was 100% trap game. I think Omaha looked ahead. You cannot look ahead in the MLV. You just can't. I don't care if the team was winless. You just can't look ahead. I knew this was a trap game from the beginning because Atlanta does have some good players. The fact that Omaha let up on the gas at home when they were up 2-0 is it's a little surprising. But again, that they probably were looking ahead to the Orlando matchup, but this is why you don't look ahead. Anyway, speaking of 5-setters, this one took a lot of gray hairs if you watch this one. This was a Saturday match, and oh man, this was a legendary 5-set match. This one has the potential to be 5-set match of the year, as the Indy Ignite outlasted the Columbus Fury, but they wound up winning the 5th set 22-20. It was unbelievable, if you ask me. The Indy Ignite were just on one. This was just a legendary matchup. Like 22-20 in this 5th set. I'm sure every fan in that arena was just exhausted, and any fan watching that match was exhausted. I was kind of watching that one and the other matchup, Ball State and UCLA. As Lecator member Monet led the way with 23 kills. It is so great to have her back on the Indy Ignite. She missed pretty much all of last season, which really stunk. Maybe Indy would have been able to beat the Orlando Valkyries next year, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Anna DeBeer also added 21 kills. You all remember her. She was a stud at Louisville. She was great in her first year last year with Indy. Azani Taylor also had 12 kills, and Lydia Martin also had 10 kills. For the Columbus Fury, they were led by Flo Marie Heredia Colon, aka the pride of University of Miami women's volleyball. She had 25 kills, but she actually didn't lead the way. Spoiler alert. Raina Terry led the way with 26 kills. But at least Columbus has unlocked the true potential of Flo Marie Heredia Colon. This is what she does. This is what she did at the University of Miami, and now she is here ready to kick the butt of everyone in the MLV. So I'm just going to say this about Columbus. I think the Columbus Fury, even though they've kind of been the butt of everyone's jokes in the MLV / PVF, I think they're kind of good. Look, their first year in the PVF, formerly known as PVF, they wound up narrowly missing out on the playoffs. And then the second year in the PVF, or formerly known as PVF, they wound up being the worst team in the league. Now they're starting to become competitive, and this is starting to become really good just because Ohio, I think, needs some sort of good team in terms of like professional sports, not just the Cleveland Browns or the Guardians. But I digress. So that's my big takeaway for Columbus Fury's loss against Indy. But Indy, there's a reason why they wound up making the championship match last year, because they've got lots of talent. And with Lecator member Monet back in the fold, I think this team can do a lot of damage. All right, now for my match of the week from the MLV. You have Omaha Supernovas taking on the Orlando Valkyries. This should have been the battle of the undefeated teams early on, but no, Omaha just had to get reverse swept by Atlanta. So this was taking place at the CHI Health Center. Orlando jumped out to winning the first 2 sets, and I was kind of looking at this match as well as there wasn't any first point collegiate challenge match on, but I was looking at this match as well as doing other things. But and I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, this is not good for Omaha. But Omaha really turned it around. They got to a better start in set 3, wound up stomping all over Orlando. Then set 4, Orlando actually jumped out to a 7-0 lead. But despite this, Omaha rallied back to win set number 4, 26-24. But unfortunately for the Supernovas, it was the magic kind of ended as they wound up losing the 5th set 15-9. But and the 5th set was much more closer than most people expected it, than what it dictates. I think Omaha was only down 2 at the side switch, but this just goes to show that Orlando is just as stacked in terms of talent as Omaha. As Orlando was led by Brittany Abercrombie, who had 22 kills. She also had 19 digs. Hannah Maddox also had 13 kills and 12 digs. They also got 14 kills from Charity Looper along with 13 digs. And Champu Gudapard, I just refer to her as Champu. She had 59 assists. Orlando was pretty darn good. They are undefeated so far, but let's see how they do against their next opponent. So Omaha lost 2 5-setters. At least this time they didn't get reverse swept. They almost pulled off the reverse sweep, but closing. Close isn't close. Anyway, Omaha, they were led by Brooke Nuneviller, who had 27 kills. She had 14 digs. They also got 11 kills from Nora to break. So you're probably wondering who Nora to break is. So Nora Sis did get married. So now she's formerly known as Nora Sis, but now she's Nora to break. And she actually wasn't 100% for this match, but she was able to put on those type of numbers, and she was actually the second kill leader for Omaha. This was the Brooke Nuneviller show. As Omaha, they hit 235 while Orlando hit 279. So this is the first round. So first match goes to Orlando, but I would not count out Omaha by any means. I think Omaha is still a good team. It's just a matter of they got to find consistency. And then the last match of week 2 of the MLV season, we had the San Diego Mojo taking down the Atlanta Vibe in a thrilling 5-set barn burner. So Atlanta Vibe could not pull off 2 5-set wins in a row, as San Diego was able to win at home, which was big for them just because they finally got their first win of the regular season, or the first win of the season. They wound up winning the match 26-24, 26-28, 25-19, 19-25, and 15-13. 15-13 5th set. The 5th set was really darn good. That could have gone either way, but eventually San Diego was able to break a 12-12 tie and eventually win the 5th set by that score. San Diego was led by Grace Loberg, who had 23 kills and she had 17 digs. Jovana Brakovic also added 19 kills. Shannon Scully didn't play. Maya Tabron added 10 kills and 15 digs. It's a good win for San Diego. My takeaway is this. It's about time they finally got on the board in terms of wins and losses. I was kind of wondering if they were ever going to pull off a win or if they were going to be the bottom dweller of the league. But San Diego did pull off the win. For Atlanta, they were led by Leah Edmond, who had 19 kills and 15 digs. They also got 13 kills from Pia Timmer. They also got 10 kills from Iko Jones, along with Raven Colvin. As Atlanta hit 227, while San Diego hit 236. But overall, it was a great win for San Diego, as there's not going to be a winless team, though I highly doubt there would be a winless team in the MLV. But at least every team has a win going into week number 3. So I feel that's a world record of teams finally getting their first win of the season in terms of the MLV/PVF. So, yeah, looking at the standings, Orlando is 3-0 to start the season. Indy is 2-0. Atlanta is 2-2. Omaha is 2-2. Dallas is 1-1. Grand Rapids is 1-2. Columbus and San Diego are both 1-3. So now we move on to week number 3. So week 3, we already got probably the match of the week. The Indy Ignite playing at the Orlando Valkyries. So it's a rematch of last year's Match for a Million match, or the PVF, formerly known as PVF, championship match. This one's going to be fun, and something's got to give here. Someone's going to be picking up their first loss of the season. honestly, Orlando looks so stacked, but I feel they might be playing with fire. They've had to play 2 5-setters. I wouldn't be surprised if Indy played them to a 5-set match. Indy is going to be really hungry when it comes to wanting to pull off a little revenge. They want to get revenge for last year. So I could see this match going either way. And Orlando, I feel they can go as far as their offense takes them. It's not just Brittany Abercrombie leading the way. She was named the most valuable player last year, but now she has backup. She's got Hannah Maddox, which I think is massive for this team, because Las Vegas unfortunately couldn't field a team this year. So Orlando Valkyries, this one can go either way. If I had to pick, I'd maybe say Orlando just because they're at home, but I think this is going to be a fun one. Also, and this is on Thursday. So also on Thursday, we have the Dallas Pulse. So we actually have a triple header. So Dallas Pulse plays at the Atlanta Vibe, which I want to see what Dallas can do following a win. Let's see if they can get their first road win of their program's history. And then closing off Thursday's matches, we've got the Omaha Supernovas hosting the Columbus Fury. Omaha has lost 2 straight. I want to see what this Omaha team can do. I feel they should win against Columbus. Like, I would be shocked. I mean, they beat the Columbus Fury in Columbus. If Omaha doesn't beat the Fury at CHI Health Center, then I know it's early, but we got to start wondering why. I mean, I also heard that Reagan Cooper, I forget it, Lucas Labe said something really questionable about Reagan Cooper. Reagan Cooper was probably one of the better players back in the first year of the PVF/MLV, but she hasn't been able to see playing time. So I want to see what's going on with Reagan Cooper. If it's too much trouble for Omaha, then they just got to ship her back to Columbus. We'll see though. But I don't want to get into too much of what Lucas Labe said. I mean, go check out Avid Volley. He has everything when it comes to that. I just don't want to get in trouble or mince words. Anyway, Friday we've got Grand Rapids Rise versus San Diego Mojo. Fitting that these two teams play on Friday. Look, this is kind of the battle, if you ask me. I mean, Grand Rapids is good, but I want to see what. But look, their win was against Columbus. Let's see how they fare on the road against San Diego. And I want to see if San Diego can build off of their win or if this was just a mirage of some sort. So this one's kind of the battle of the one win teams, but someone's going to be getting their second win of the season. Then we jump to Saturday. We have Omaha Supernovas playing at the Indy Ignite. Okay, Omaha does have a win on the road, but let's see if they can get a legit win on the road against a better opponent that's not the Columbus Fury. Not that the Columbus Fury isn't bad by any means. I think Columbus is a massively improved opponent. I just think that this probably could be a very sneaky good game. And by sneaky good, I mean very good game. So let's see if the Indy Ignite can take down the Supernovas. And then on Sunday, we have a doubleheader. We have the Atlanta Vibe at the Columbus Fury. I imagine Atlanta should win, but I thought that Atlanta was going to lose to the Supernova. So I think if Columbus gets a good game at home, if they play loose, relaxed, and free on their home field, I think they definitely have a good shot at winning. But if they play like they did against Omaha or they just play down their competition, I think Atlanta should win this one. But I think Atlanta is capable of winning either on the road or at home. I mean, they wound up losing to San Diego, yes, but they wound up beating Omaha on the road. We shall see. Anyway, so the last match of week 3 is the Dallas Pulse playing at the Orlando Valkyries. So Orlando is home for both of its matches this week. It's last year's reigning champs versus the new kids on the block. We'll see if Dallas can pull off the win. I mean, Orlando is still stacked as ever. I imagine Orlando should be ready for the Dallas Pulse, but I feel a little bit more comfortable about the Pulse if they're playing in Dallas, but unfortunately that's not the case. So I feel that Orlando should win this one, but you never know with these new expansion teams. All right, but that is that for the MLB portion of the show. Now let's jump on into Love, or LOVB. So week 2 only had 3 matches. We had LOVB Atlanta taking down LOVB Austin in 4, which was a nice little get-back game for LOVB Atlanta, as they were led by Tessa Grubbs, who had 26 points. They also got 14 points from Mackenzie Adams, and then Tia Jimerson had 11 points, and then Magdalena Yashlarova added 12 points. And then LOVB Austin, they were led by Asia O'Neill, who had 14 points, while Maddie Skinner and Logan Eggleston both had 11 points. So, okay, this was actually billed as match of the week or game of the week. I actually think that was a good match of the week right there, just because both those teams played one another. This was played on a Wednesday, I think. Yeah, it was played on a Wednesday, and they had played one another 3 days ago, which was pretty impressive. And Atlanta wound up losing to Austin in 5. So the fact that Atlanta got its get back was pretty impressive. Then we jumped to Friday. We had LOVB Madison taking down LOVB Nebraska in 4. So I kind of wasn't expecting Nebraska to lose this one, but Madison is pretty darn good, even though Annie Drews is on maternity leave. As they got 16 points from Anna Hawk, and they also got 16 points from Gong Zhangyu. They also got 13 points from Temi Thomas Ilara. Callie Schwarzenbach actually led the way for LOVB Madison with 17 points, while LOVB Nebraska was led by Candelaria Herrera and Jaylee Winters, both having 14 points. It was just not enough, as Madison wound up winning. But at the same time, LOVB Nebraska actually wound up winning its second match of the week, as they took down LOVB Atlanta in straight sets. The first set was kind of crazy. They were down 20, I think it was like 23-27 or 23-17, and they wound up winning the set 27-25. That right there is the grit of Nebraska teams. That right there is the grittiness of Nebraska volleyball teams. So that's why I think Nebraska volleyball teams are just so darn good. And this LOVB Nebraska team is pretty impressive. It's just that I think they just kind of got off to such a slow start, as LOVB Nebraska was led by, looks like, Emily Thader, who had 18 points. They also got 15 points from Kim Drunick, and then Jordan Larson had 11 kills. Jordan Larson, this is her last year of professional volleyball before she retires officially, which really is going to feel weird. But the governor had an amazing volleyball career. Anyway, LOVB Atlanta, they were led by Tia Jimerson, who had 11 points, while Tessa Grubbs added 10 points. So that is pretty much that for that little recap. I just think that winning the first set was just the biggest turning point of the match for LOVB Atlanta. So, or not LOVB Atlanta, LOVB Nebraska, but it was the big backbreaker for LOVB Atlanta. So for week 3, we got a lot of matches this week. We got 5 matches starting on Wednesday. We have LOVB Austin playing LOVB Madison at Alliant Energy Arena in Madison. And then Thursday, you've got LOVB Houston playing LOVB Salt Lake at the SLCC Bruin Arena. Then on Saturday, you've got a doubleheader with LOVB Houston and LOVB Austin in a Texas two-step at the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio. Nice little neutral site there. I guess that's fair. And then also on Saturday, you got LOVB Madison playing LOVB Salt Lake at the SLCC Bruin Arena. And then Sunday, we close off week 3 of the LOVB season, or Love season, with LOVB Nebraska playing LOVB Atlanta at the Gateway Center Arena in Atlanta. So that's pretty much this week in terms of LOVB or Love. I think it's going to be a fun little week for LOVB. A lot more matches, just because in week 3 we only had, or week 2 we only had 3 matches. This week we have 3 matches, and there are no buys for anybody. And then the following week we've got week 4 of the LOVB season, we'll have 4 matches, which I think is going to be pretty cool. So that is that right there for the LOVB season, and that is pretty much that. And I guess I'm not going to go too much on this. So the VLA did have some matchups. So it wasn't like an actual tournament that happened, but there was like divisional matchups. So the Chicago Iceman, pretty good name right there. So I think it was the Chicago Iceman, last year's runner-up in the VLA championships. They took down the Chicago Swede in a 5-set barn burner, and that is not how Swede is spelled. Let me just fix that real quick. But yeah, the Chicago Swede and the Chicago Iceman in the Battle of Chicago. That's pretty cool right there. I like that matchup. So Chicago Swede. But yeah, Chicago Swede lost to Chicago Iceman. And then there was also some other action. You had the Atlanta Bobcats going undefeated in their divisional play this past weekend. And then you had the Ohio Valley Unicorns, which I think is an amazing name. Yeah, the Ohio Valley Unicorns, go figure. They wound up going undefeated as well this past weekend. So it wasn't really like tournament. I think it was like a round robin play. But overall, I think it was pretty darn cool. That's some bit of news on the VLA. I can't lie. There was a lot of volleyball that happened, and I was just focused on First Point Collegiate Challenge mostly, as well as the other NCAA men's volleyball matches, and then some of the VLA match, or not the VLA matches, the MLV matches. But I need to make note of the VLA just because it's volleyball too. So that's that for the VLA portion of the show. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I will see you all tomorrow at Concordia University, Irvine. And also definitely do follow Set Point on social media for all of the content on TikTok and on X and on Instagram. Definitely do follow it right here. There is TikTok and there is Instagram. It's going to flash that right on your screen. But for everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have an amazing week. Enjoy all the volleyball action, and I will see you at the next volleyball matchup. Peace!